Swami Vivekananda once said, as the word orthodoxy has been manipulated into various forms, so has been the word practical. My doxy is orthodoxy, your doxy is heterodoxy. So with practicality, what I think is practical is to me the only practicality in the world. If I'm a shopkeeper, I think shopkeeping the only practical pursuit in the world. If I'm a thief, I think stealing is the best means of being practical. Others are not practical. You see how we all use this word practical for things we like and can do? Therefore, I will ask you to understand that Vedanta, though it is intensely practical, is always so in the sense of the ideal. It does not preach an impossible ideal, however high it be, and it is high enough for an ideal. In one word, this ideal is that you are divine, thou art that. The Vedanta also says that not only can this be realized in the depths of forests or caves, but by men in all possible conditions of life. We have seen that the people who discovered these truths were neither living in caves or forests, nor following the ordinary vocations of life, but men who, we have every reason to believe, led the busiest of lives, men who had to command armies, to sit on thrones and look to the welfare of millions, and all these in the days of absolute monarchy, and not as in these days when a king is to a great extent a mere figurehead. Yet they could find time to think out all these thoughts, to realize them and to teach them to humanity. How much more then should it be practical for us whose lives compared with theirs are lives of leisure? Having seen what Swami Vivekananda said about practical Vedanta, we have with us Swami Sarvapriyananda ji, who is a renowned monk of the Ramakrishna Mutt and Mission. After having had a degree in business management from Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar, he joined the Ramakrishna Order in 1994. He has been serving the Ramakrishna Mutt and Mission for over 20 years now, in various capacities, including Vice Principal of the Deoghar Vidyapith Higher Secondary School, Principal of the Sikshana Mandira Teachers Training College at Belur Mutt, and as the first Registrar of the Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda University at Belur Mutt. At present, he is an Acharya at the Monastic Probationers Training Center at Belur Mutt. Recently, he has been ordained Assistant Minister, Vivekananda Society of Southern California, Los Angeles, USA. Swamiji has been a speaker at TEDx IIM Ranchi. Besides premier Indian institutes like the IITs and IISc, he has also delivered lectures on Vedanta extensively across the USA and Australia, New Zealand, including noted universities such as the University of Queensland, University of Sydney, Victoria University and University of North Texas, etc. His interests lie in the fields of Indian and Western philosophy, spirituality, psychology, management sciences and education. Having said these few sentences about him, without any further delay, I welcome Swami Sarvapriyananda ji to deliver the talk.
Om anitya drishyeshu vivitya nityam tasmin samadhatta yahasma leelaya viveka vairagya vishuddha chittam yosau viveki tamaham namami. Revered monks and dear brahmacharis, respected members of the faculty, dear students and guests, it's a real pleasure to be back here again this evening. And this time the subject is how to spiritualize our life, our everyday life. Now, when Swami Vivekananda was lecturing in the United States more than 100 years ago, often when he would try to talk about spirituality, try to define the essence of spirituality, he would often quote a verse from a mantra from the Upanishads, a very famous mantra, which he would quote in his mellifluous voice in Sanskrit and then translate into English. It goes like this: Shrinvantu Vishve Amritasya Putraha Aye Dahamani Divyani Tastu Vedaham Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat Tameva Viditva Ati Mrityumeti Nanyah Pantha Vidyate Ayanaya. Now, to me, this mantra actually captures the core of spirituality. In fact, the core of every religion. The essence of spirituality and religion is there in this ancient verse. No one knows who composed it, who said it first. But it goes something like this. Whoever said it is saying, listen, ye children of immortal bliss. And that itself is amazing, because the first and the most important thing, the most indubitable thing that we know about ourselves is that we are mortal, that we will die. And here we are being called children of immortal bliss, amritasya putraha. He is even saying, Aye dhamani divyani tastu. If there are gods in heavens, you also listen, because what I am going to say, you do not know. What is that? Vedaham purusham mahantam. I have realized that infinite being. Purusham mahantam here means an infinite being. That there is something, an infinite reality is there beyond this world of apparent names and forms. Reduced to the core, to the basic essentials, all religions say that there is something which transcends this world of appearance. Call it God or Allah or Brahman or Atman or Nirvana. Whether you accept God, you do not accept God, there is some transcendent spiritual reality, and that is the core of any spirituality, any kind of spirituality. Vedaham purusham mahantam. Supposing such a thing is there, what is it like? Aditya varnam, blazing forth like the sun, not with a material light, but with the light of consciousness. Aditya varnam. Tamasah parastat, beyond all darkness. The darkness of ignorance, the darkness of limitation and sorrow, there is something which transcends. And supposing such a thing is there, what good is it to know or to realize this? Tameva viditva ati mrityumeti. The highest good is here, the highest blessedness is here, because once we realize that, by realizing that alone, we transcend death, suffering, sorrow, misery, any kind of suffering, we transcend it. Note that, tameva viditva ati mrityum eti, we transcend it. It's not that all sufferings will end, but we transcend it. We are no longer bound to suffering. Well, there are other ways of overcoming suffering. Aren't there other material ways of overcoming suffering? You're sick, you take medicine. You're poor, you earn money, and so on. So many material ways are there of overcoming suffering. But this verse says, Nanya pantha vidyate ayanaya. There is no other path. Every other path gives limited results. Every other way, secular way of overcoming suffering, will work only to a certain extent. Again, you have the same suffering or a different kind of suffering. And it's a fact. We've all led lives, we are at least in our 20s, some are in 30s, some are much older. And after having done so many things, after all, whatever we were trying to do in our lives till today is that we are trying to overcome suffering and get happiness. And at this point, whether you're 25 years old, 35 or 55 or 65 years old, none of us, we can really claim that we have been successful in any significant way. We still have problems. We still have expectations from life which which are not fulfilled. And there's a Buddhist meditation, very interesting meditation. They ask you to contemplate how much you have eaten today, this afternoon, the rice, the sambar or the dosa, whatever. And imagine how much you have eaten yesterday, you all pile it up together, and day before yesterday, and in 1 week, all the material in front of you, and in 1 month, and in the last 25 years of your life. It will cover the lawn outside, mountains of rice and lakes of sambar, and so on. And after having consumed all this food, today, this is what I am. What have I got to show for it? What have I done to deserve that? And what, even let the world alone, how much of my own problems have I solved after all that? How much resources I have consumed trying to get happiness and satisfaction in life? So, tameva viditva ati mrityumeti nanyah pantha vidyate ayanaya. There is no other way. So there is something, call it God or Brahman or Allah or something, you will realize that, and that is the solution to the limitations and problems of human life. That's the promise of all religions. In different language, in different mythology, in different philosophies. That's a promise. There's something which transcends our mortal life. Now here comes a problem. They seem to be setting up a dichotomy between our day-to-day life and this so-called spiritual reality. So we have the division between secular and spiritual. This is religious life when I go to the temple and I worship and I pray. I offer namaz or I chant mantras or I pray before the cross, whatever. That's my religious life. And here I go to the office or to the classroom or to my hostel and study or the family, and this is my secular life. And there seems to be a dichotomy between these two. And when you say all this cannot give me satisfaction, that spirituality alone can give me satisfaction, now the reaction would be, then I have to give up all this and then take up an exclusively life devoted to exclusively to spiritual, so-called spiritual or religious practices. Swami Vivekananda says, this seems to be some kind of suicidal advice. It's like mosquito is sitting on my friend's nose and biting him, and to kill the mosquito I give such a blow that friend also dies. He gave this example. And the answer seems to be like that. All of this life is useless, it cannot give me satisfaction. There is something called spirituality, let me get hold of that, give up this thing, and then I will get satisfaction and peace and contentment, overcome miseries. Is that true? That leads to so much conflict in life. A few minutes of spiritual practice and the rest of it is non-spiritual, and there is conflict. Swami Vivekananda says here, very interesting, he says, he who runs away from the world to meditate in a Himalayan cave and die there, he has missed the way. He who embraces the world with its foolishness and its vanities and its luxuries, he too has missed the way. Now this is very interesting and paradoxical. This world is there, either you catch hold of it or you let go of it. And he says both are wrong. In both you will not get what you are seeking for. That spirituality is not possible in either of these ways. Then what is the way? You can't give up the world, you can't take the world as it is, then what is the way? Swami Vivekananda says next, the way is to defy the world, to see God in everything, in all the persons we deal with, we meet, in all the activities that we do, in all our experiences, to find God there itself. Defy the world, that means defy our life to make our so-called secular life a spiritualized life. That is the solution, that is the theme for today's talk. Just now, he read out an excerpt from Swami Vivekananda that brought back a very funny incident which happened. Swami Vivekananda is saying here that this doctrine, this kind of teaching was given not in ashrams, not in the forests. It was given to men of action. Where does Sri Krishna teach the Gita? Not in Gangotri on the Himalayas. He teaches it in Kurukshetra, in the middle of the battlefield of life. Swami Vivekananda says it was something that was taught and studied by kings, people of action, those who were ruling over big kingdoms. And then he mentions, not like today when kings are mere figureheads. At that time they were really people with tremendous power and a lot of activities they had to do, a lot of responsibility. And they found time for this philosophy. So how much more we can practice this? Compared to them, our lives are lives of leisure. Swami Vivekananda says this. Now this reminds me, about 6 or 7 years ago in Calcutta, I was giving a talk organized by the Rotary in Calcutta Club. So I arrived early for the talk, and there was this lady, elderly lady, who greeted me, who gave me some food in a dish, and she was talking to me. And it's very interesting because I started talking about a lecture which I had given the week before that in Burdwan University, a university near Calcutta, Burdwan University. And it's a huge old building. And she said, "Oh, did you give a lecture in the such and such hall?" I said, "Yes, how do you know?" And she smiled and said, "Oh, that was my room. I used to stay there." I said, "You stay there? It's a big hall, almost the size, a little smaller than this hall. What do you mean stay there?" Then she smiled and said, "Oh, Swami, I am the princess of Burdwan." She belongs to the royal family. It was their palace which her father donated at the independence of India for the university. It's called the Golab Bagh campus. Alright, then the talk started, and without considering what I was saying, I quoted this portion, that the kings of those days, kings and queens of those days had real power, not like the kings of today who are mere figureheads, you know. And she was sitting there. Another gentleman who was sitting next to her did like this, she's talking about you. I just remembered that. So Swami Vivekananda says, you have to spiritualize this life itself. Now, how do you spiritualize this life? God exists according to that mantra I just quoted. Vedaham Purusham Mahantam. But where is that God? If it is spiritualize this life, I see people in front of me. I see a hall in front of me. I see a body. If I close my eyes, I sense some mind, thoughts, feelings, emotions, perceptions. Where is God here? How do I spiritualize this life? At least in a temple I can understand. There is some kind of image or some kind of worship going on. But this seems to be very secular. Where is God here? You see, the verse which I chanted just before I started this talk, Anitya Drishyeshu Vivichya Nityam. It's a salutation of Swami Vivekananda. What does it mean? In this world of Anitya Drishyam, temporal, transient, ever-changing world, people come and go, events keep on happening, my body and mind are continuously changing. Anitya Drishyam, changing world of experience. In this very Anitya Drishyam, Vivichya Nityam, one who finds the eternal, unchanging reality, called that Purusham Mahantam, that infinite being, right here, in this experience of the changing world. How do you find that? Vivichya. It's a very interesting word. That's where the name Vivekananda has come from. It comes from a Sanskrit derivation of a root. The derivation is Vivich. It means Vivich Prithak Karane. Vivich means to separate. To separate two things which are mixed up. They seem to be mixed up, and it seems to be one thing, but actually two things are mixed up there. You separate that. The Nitya and the Anitya are mixed up. How are they mixed up? For example, gold and ornaments. You have a bangle, you have a necklace, you have an earring, and they're all made of gold. Now somebody comes and tells you, the bangle and the necklace and the earring, those are not the real thing. The real thing is gold. Look for the gold. Now, if I say, I will leave the bangle and the earring and the necklace aside and search for the gold, will I find the gold? Never. If I get hold of the bangle and say, this is gold, what will be the problem? The moment the bangle is melted down and made into an earring or a necklace, I will say gold is gone, because gold means that bangle, that particular shape, that particular name. Once I take that name and form to be real, it keeps changing. That's Anitya Drishyam. I miss the reality which is the gold. So the gold is there itself in all the forms of the ornaments. That gold alone is shining forth as these ornaments. It is the ability to see the ornament, experience the ornament, and know it to be gold. One immediate result is you get samadrishti. In the high and so-called high and the low, in the rich and the poor, in the learned and the ignorant, there is one reality shining forth. There's a story of a goldsmith. One Sethji, he had some problems with his business, and he took his Ganesha, Vinayaka idol, that image made of gold, to the goldsmith pawn shop. He kept it there and he said, give me some money for that. And the goldsmith weighed it and he said, this much rate I will give you. All right, this much for Vinayaka. How much for the mouse? The Vahana is there, mouse. And the goldsmith said, same rate, sir. And the Sethji was furious. What? Ganesh ji ke jo rate hai, chua ka bhi wahi rate. How can it be so? How can you have the same rate for Ganesha and for the mouse? And the goldsmith said, sir, for you it is Vinayaka and mouse, the Vahana and the Devata. For me it is, hamare liye to sona hi hai. For me it is gold. It's just gold. In the sense of gold, both are the same. It's the same gold appearing as Vinayaka and as the mouse. So, you are seeing the same thing. The Sethji is seeing the same image, the goldsmith is seeing the same image, but the drishti is different. His drishti goes deeper and sees the gold. It is the drishti, it's the ability to separate the wave from water. You cannot physically separate it. You realize that the wave is nothing but water. And all waves are only water. The tsunami wave is water, and small little wave or a ripple in the lake is also water. It's the ability to understand that that table and this lectern and the chair, they are all wood. As table, lectern and chair, they are three different entities, they have three different names, they have three different forms, but as wood, they are one reality. In the same way, there is one existence consciousness bliss shining forth as this world. And we have to recognize the unchanging reality in all these names and forms, and that is what it means. Anitya drishyeshu vivichya nityam, by viveka. And this viveka is done inside, in understanding, in intuitive understanding, not outside. You cannot physically separate God from the world. It is that reality appearing forth as this world. And what did Swami Vivekananda do? Anitya drishyeshu vivichya nityam. Having recognized the nityam, the purusham mahantam appearing forth in this world. Tasmin samadhattaya smalilaya. With greatest ease, his mind becomes absorbed in samadhi, in that infinite unchanging reality. For us, even if we try to understand, very difficult to keep our mind there. If I think you are all God, the next moment somebody comes and insults me, I get furious. So the God element disappears to the background and the human element comes to the front. If the God element I focus on, praise and insult both, I will understand this is praise and that is insult, but both are in reality the same Satchidananda. This understanding is there not only in Vedanta, it's there in many of the traditions in India. I was just reading yesterday in the Ramakrishna Math library, the ancient Tamil sage and poet Thiruvallavar, he says that the mighty elephant, a child goes to a carpenter's shop and there is an elephant made of wood. And there is a verse which says the child is crying because the mighty elephant has hidden the wood. It's an elephant for the child. And the carpenter comes and soothes the child and says, no, it is wood only. From the carpenter's drishti, the wood has hidden the elephant. So there is a verse. Another Swami told me the Tamil version of it, I did not know. So it is the same understanding. You get a Jagat Samsara drishti and the Jnani has got a Satchidananda drishti. Swami Vivekananda says, the only God I worship is that whom the ignorant call man. Whom the ignorant call man, the Ajnani calls man, I recognize that as God and I worship that God. The only God I worship. How is Swami Vivekananda able to grasp this divinity within and get absorbed in it, whereas our minds, we find it difficult to grasp, let alone get absorbed in it. He says, the next line, Viveka Vairagya Vishuddha Chittam. Because his mind has been purified, Vishuddha, by Viveka. Viveka means this ability to discriminate, this discrimination is a bad word. Especially I went to for a lecture tour to USA a couple of months back, and somebody said, Swami, you keep translating Vivek as discrimination. It's a very bad word in USA. So you should translate it as analysis. Don't say discrimination. Viveka, they are able to analyze the name and form and Brahman composite which is coming before us as this world, to separate it in understanding and focus on the Nityam aspect. Viveka and Vairagya. Vairagya means a dispassion. Our problem is a raga and dvesha. We are attracted to certain names and forms. Health and wealth and beauty and enjoyment, and repelled by other things. Disease and poverty and hard work and insult, repelled. So we are trapped in the appearance of name and form. Swami Vivekananda has Vairagya. He does not want any particular name and form in preference to the other. Hence, he is able to penetrate straight through to the heart of reality. Yosau Viveki Tamaham Namami. Such a Viveki, Vivekananda. I salute such a Vivek. That was the meaning of the Pranam mantra. So that is how we are expected to see God in everything, to divinize our experience in this very life. Yesterday I was giving you the example that projector was on. When I put the hand in front, you can see the hand shining. And if I ask anybody, what do you see? Everybody will say, we see a hand. But you also see the light. In fact, what you see is the light reflected back from the hand. In the same way, all the names and forms are just manifesting the divinity behind. Of course, it's not as easy as I make it sound, Because here you understand what is wood and what is lectern. So when I say, you see this as a lectern, you say, okay, I understand it. You see this as wood, you will say, okay, I understand it as wood, because you understand the difference between wood and table or lectern. But when I say, see these people, your friends and your teachers and the staff members here, and the birds and animals and deer and everything as Brahman, the problem is, we understand the first term, and the people and animals and deer and all these things, and we do not understand the second term. We do not appreciate it. It's just a word to us. What is Brahman here? So that there is a process for that. We discussed some of that yesterday. If you remember in the Kena Upanishad talk, Pratibodha Viditam Matam. In every experience, every conscious experience, the consciousness element is what Swami Vivekananda calls the Nityam, the unchanging divinity. So in our every experience we can experience God. Now, when Swami Vivekananda started the Ramakrishna mission, he gave a motto to us. He said, Atmano mokshartham jagat hitaya cha. For your own liberation, for your own enlightenment, and jagat hitaya, for the welfare of the world. Now look at the language. For your own liberation and for the welfare of the world. Cha means and. Now a question comes up. Why and? Why not just one or the other? Why not for your moksha, atmano mokshartham? Or why not for the welfare of the world, for the service of humanity, only that much? Why the two together? Why and? Why and? You go further back. Jesus Christ, in the Bible, they have the 10 commandments in Judaism, again, and that's also in Christianity. The 10 commandments are there in the Old Testament. Somebody asked Jesus Christ, in the Bible it is there. Somebody asked Jesus Christ, what are the most important commandments? And you know what Jesus Christ said? Jesus said, first, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy might. What a beautiful thing to say. That you love God with all your might, with all your heart. And love thy neighbor. Do you see? And. Why and? Why not just love God enough? Or why not just love thy neighbor? Everybody else, the world, people around you. But why and? Go further back. We do not know how much further back, but in Kurukshetra, Sri Krishna sums up the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. In the battlefield of life, he says, what is the summation of the teaching? Mam anusmara yudhyacha. Dwell on me, contemplate on me, on God. And fight means, fight the battle of life. And why did he not say, do your duty, finished? Why did he not say, just think about God, finished? No. Contemplate upon God, meditate upon God, think of God, and do your duty in life, and fight the battle of life. Yudhya cha. Again that and comes up. Last year, I remember I was talking to another Swami, a younger monk, and we were discussing how we became monks, what drew us to spiritual life. I said to him, you see, this Atmana Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya Cha, the first part really drew me, and that's what is within, from a childhood I've been searching for God. The search for this promise of religion, that there is something called God, there is a reality, outside and inside. There is some spiritual reality. This search has really motivated me. So the Atmana Mokshartham part of it motivates me. And the other part, and Jagat Hitaya, for the welfare of the world, I like that. That's pretty good. But I must admit the first part motivates me. After 20 years of spiritual, in this life as a monk, I am beginning to realize you cannot have a personal spirituality. As you grow in spiritual life, it is not just a question of removing your personal suffering and getting a personal, private spiritual joy. Rather, as we expand, the suffering of others is also our suffering, and the joy of others is also our joy. So, Jagat Hitaya, I realize I cannot have Atmana Mokshartham without Jagat Hitaya. The other monk was looking at me with surprise, and he said, that's amazing, because I came to spiritual life from the other end. When I became a monk, what really motivated me was Jagathitaya, this service to the poor, the people who are suffering. Let me make my life meaningful by doing something for others. This Vedanta and yoga and meditation and Atmano Mokshartham, that was nice. I liked it, but that's not what motivated me. See, just the mirror image of what I was saying. And he says, after so many years as a monk, I realize simply social service, simply a social commitment is not enough. There is something that transcends this world of appearance, and that Atmano Mokshartham, that is very important. Now you see two monks, spiritual practitioners, starting from two ends of the spectrum. One is motivated by making life meaningful by doing something for others. One is motivated by the search for a spiritual reality. Both of them come to the conclusion, Atmano Mokshartham, your own spiritual enlightenment, Jagat Hitaya cha, and the welfare of the world. Jagat Hitaya, connected by that and. This is real spirituality. This understanding comes. Love God and love thy neighbor. Mam anusmara yudhya cha. Contemplate on God and do your duty in life. Few years back, I was giving a talk in Nagpur University, Tukaroji University, Nagpur. The gentleman who introduced me, he said something that really struck me. An old gentleman who is running a school in a slum outside Nagpur, hundreds of boys and girls belonging to the poorest sections of society. They study there. Now this gentleman, he's retired from service and his whole life is dedicating for that work only. Now he started the introduction, he's introducing me, Vedanta, practical Vedanta, more or less similar subject was there. He said something that was so poignant, so touching. He said, in India, in our eagerness to be gods, we have forgotten to be human. We want to become Jivan Mukta, enlightened, like Raman Maharshi sitting in a cave and something like that, in bliss. And all around us, a sea of poverty. People suffering from sickness, from ignorance, from poverty, from sectarianism, violence, discrimination. Here I'll use the word discrimination in the negative sense itself. Is suffering. People are suffering. We've forgotten that. Neglecting that, we pursue a private spirituality. This is what Swami Vivekananda focused his teachings upon. The light of Vedanta. He says, I do not care for the religion which promises me God in heaven and which cannot wipe the widow's tears or provide some bread to a hungry man. I don't believe in such a religion. Swami Akhandanandaji, one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, who started the first orphanage of the Ramakrishna mission in Sargachi in Bengal. One great Pandit wrote to him, you see, you all are sannyasis. You should contemplate on God and you should move around begging for your food, staying in the ashram. Why have you started this school and college and relief camps and all this? This is not good. You are getting trapped in Maya. Swami Akhandananda wrote back a fiery letter. He said, that God whom I am searching for is in front of me as the starving man, is in front of me as the orphan child, and so on, he writes in a very touching letter. I shall give up, why this only one life? I am ready to give up 100 lives in service of my God, the poor. If this is against your philosophy and religion, let it be, I don't care. Swami Akhandanji says this. Master Mahashaya, who wrote the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he once expressed a doubt to Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda, he said, Swamiji, isn't all your school and college and all these social activities, aren't they all within Maya? Aren't you sannyasis? You're supposed to go beyond Maya. Swami Vivekananda said to him, your Vedanta, he's saying, your Vedanta says the Atman is ever free, Satchidananda, isn't it? So why do sadhana to free the Atman which is already free? Isn't that also within Maya? All of your sadhana, isn't it within Maya? So Master Mahashaya, he kept quiet, but he was not convinced. Years later, in Banaras, there is a hospital set up by the Ramakrishna Mission. Ma Sharda was visiting that place, and Master Mahashaya also had gone along, and many others were there. Swami Brahmananda was there, the first president of the Ramakrishna Mission. And Ma Sharda went around the hospital, And she was so happy to see the work of serving the poor people, which the Swamis were doing there. Even today, they have a special day when they actually worship the patient, literally. Throughout the year, they're worshipping the patient with medicine and treatment. But one day, they actually worship the patient with flowers and incense, like a ritualistic worship. So the Shiva is there in the form of the sick person. Now, Ma Sharda was so happy, she said, I see that it is Guru Maharaj's work, Sri Ramakrishna's work, God's work which is being done here. Immediately, Swami Brahmananda said to one of the brahmacharis, you please go and tell, Master Maharshi was there, go and tell him that this is what Ma Sharda has said. Ma Sharda was so happy at that time, she gave a 10 rupee note to that ashram, a currency note in those days, as a blessing. And they still have preserved it. If you go to that hospital, they'll show you in a glass case that is kept. So this brahmachari ran to Master Mahasaya and said, Swami Brahmananda said this to tell you that Ma Sharda has approved of this work and says this is spiritual practice. And then Master Mahasaya laughed. He understood what the message. He said, well, now I cannot doubt it anymore. This is spiritualizing life, combining service and spirituality, spiritualizing service. It's one of the most beautiful, maybe the best form of life I can think of, the highest ideal in life. Live a life of complete peace and joy within, and externally a life of service. Most meaningful kind of life. Jivan Mukta, just consider the status of a person who has realized Brahman, who has realized the divinity within. And what will be the condition afterwards? Swami Gambhirananda, in one of his essays, he says a Jivan Mukta can have three attitudes, three alternative attitudes towards the world. A Brahmagyani, how does he or she see the world? There are three alternatives. One is that Brahmagyani would not want to be concerned with the world anymore and remain immersed in the bliss of Brahman. That's one attitude. And in fact, this is what Swami Vivekananda wanted when Sri Ramakrishna said after his first Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Sri Ramakrishna asked him, what do you want? He was Narendranath at that time. And Narendranath, famously he said, I want to remain immersed in this bliss. Once in a while I'll come down from this, eat something and go back into that bliss again. And Sri Ramakrishna scolded him. He said, shame on you. I thought you would be like a huge banyan tree under whose shade hundreds or thousands of people for ages to come, they will find peace. And here you are concerned only about your own spiritual life. So, and luckily, Narendranath changed his views, and that's why we are here today. I am a Swami and we are here in the Vivekananda study circle and having this discussion, and so many things are happening in the world because of that. So that's one attitude, and that's not a wrong attitude. It's a wonderful attitude. And there are many Brahmagyanis who were like that. And there are, even today I'm sure, who remain immersed in their inner spiritual joy. People outside may or may not recognize them. There is a second category of Brahmagyani, a Jivan Mukta, Gambhirananda Maharaj writes, who will look at this world as a wonder, as a magic show, as something wonderful. They will not get involved, but they will see it as joy. Even the good and the bad, both they see as an expression of the divine. There was a Swami in Dakshineshwar, when Sri Ramakrishna was alive in Dakshineshwar. At that time, the Swami used to live in a small hut. And every day he would come out and look at the world and he would say, wow, 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 wonderful, wonderful. And he'd go back to his hut and start meditating again. So that was his attitude towards the world. He sees that Vismaya, God, existence, consciousness, bliss, appears as a human being, as a river, as a temple, as a dog, as an insect. Oh, how wonderful. Fantastic. This is the Leela, the play of God. And there is a third attitude of a Jivan Mukta, Swami Gambhirananda writes, where the Brahmagyani, the Jivan Mukta's heart melts in love and compassion. That God is in form of the suffering person. Here is the poor person. He needs resources, education. He needs medical services. Here is the spiritual seeker who has no want in life, but he wants spiritual knowledge. He or she wants spiritual knowledge. So by giving food or medicine or education or spiritual knowledge, in all these ways that Brahmagyani would like to, or Jivan Mukta would like to, dedicate his or her life in service of God in the form of humanity, of suffering humanity. As Swami Vivekananda says, my God the poor, my God the ignorant, my God the sick. It's not just rhetoric. He literally means it. He can see that consciousness, that existence consciousness bliss, which he finds everywhere, appearing in this form, and our response will immediately be love, it will be adoration in the form of service. So these are the three attitudes of the Jivan Mukta. You see, a few years back in Hardwar, we were sitting at the feet of a very old Swami who has passed away since. He put it beautifully. He says, God plays hide and seek with us. God plays hide and seek with us. How? When this universe is there right now, God is hidden. We don't see God. We don't experience God. We experience everything but not God. We may even doubt whether God exists. And he says there comes a time when there is pralaya. The whole universe is destroyed and it's all absorbed back into Maya. All the jivas exist only in potential form in Maya. Nothing is there except God. So what happens? God now searches. Where did those fellows go? When this world is there, we are searching for God. God is hidden. Where is God? And when there is pralaya, God is searching. Where did those fellows go? And so he finds us out and then he projects us back into this universe and he hides. So an eternal hide and seek is going on between God and us. So they put it very beautifully. Now this spiritualizing everyday life, practical Vedanta resolves this problem. Now there is no more problem of hide and seek. You can find God everywhere, in every action, in every being, in all your friends, and yes, even in so-called your enemies also. Everywhere it is the same God appearing in the good and the bad too. So this problem of eternal hide and seek is solved and resolved into a situation of the continuous vision of God. Swami Ashokananda, one of the great Swamis who went out to the West in the 1930s, he says in one of his lectures, I was reading one of his notes, he says there, talking about spiritualizing life, finding God everywhere. He says, proof of God, foolish question. Where do you not see God? I see God everywhere. All appearances, all people, everything is God to me. It's not just thinking that way. It's visible. It's a reality. He says, another important point he made was, see how it helps us. No doubt it's a difficult ideal, but it's also in one sense easier. If you ask people who do spiritual practices, I'm sure all of us, we have the same experience. When you meditate, the problem is, everybody will say, Swami, when we meditate, the mind wanders. I'll say that, yes, that's my problem too. You have come to the wrong person. I also have that problem when the mind wanders. When we try to, concentrate our mind on God, the mind tends to think about the world. And so this is a problem. Why? Do you know why that happens? It's because we are trying to exclude the world and try to think about God apart from the world. So it's like trying to think about an abstraction where the world of concreteness is pouring in, banging on your doors, trying to attract your attention. And sitting and meditating, mosquito sits on your nose, that's enough to disturb. All thought of God flies away. The mosquito becomes the only reality. There's a story of Swami Vivekananda in Kashipur, sitting there in meditation. The person who saw him, his reminiscences are there. Sitting in meditation, his face is covered with mosquitoes. And he's lost deep inside. And our condition just the opposite. One mosquito enough to disturb the deepest meditation. Now, because we are trying to exclude the mosquitoes of love and hate and raga and dvesha, responsibilities, troubles, illness, those are all mosquitoes. We're trying to ignore that and concentrate on something abstract. Naturally, it's difficult. It's very difficult. Whereas, just imagine, the same spiritual practice if you do, you are teaching a group of students. That is your spiritual practice. You're taking care of a sick person. That is your spiritual practice. Your mind cannot wander. It's very demanding, difficult. They will ensure, the students or the sick person will ensure that your mind is pulled back to the job at hand. Service is such a thing where you cannot say my mind is wandering, because you are involved with other people who will demand your service, who will make sure that you do your job. So, in one sense, though it is challenging, it's also easy in a sense that you will not have the complaint of how can I concentrate my mind on God? Just an attitudinal change, and you go on doing it. There's so many such examples. I might just mention, I don't know if you would like it if I mention it. Some of you may have heard of Gayatri Spivak, Chakravarti Spivak. She's a well-known feminist, post-colonial theorist in USA, and not at all known as somebody believing in God, just the opposite, in fact. She came to Belur Math, to the college there, and gave a talk which I attended. She's now in USA. For many years she's been there. She's the one who first translated Derrida into English. She is a leading intellectual. There are not many people here are very much aware of her, but she's something like an intellectual superstar there in USA. She had come and she said something very interesting. Just because it was a college in Belur Math, she said things which normally she does not say elsewhere. She said that when she was a student, when she went to USA many decades ago, she went to Swami Sarvapriyananda, who was head of the Vedanta Society in New York, and she said, Swami, I can't believe in God. I don't believe in God. Then Swami said, in Bengali, I'll tell you and translate, Ki ar korbi tor adhyayani tor tapa. Well, what else will you do? Your studies are your spiritual practice. Your study and teaching is your spiritual practice. And she says, that I have treated as my spiritual practice throughout my life. I have taught in the best universities, whether I am in USA or in Paris, in France, or in a small village in West Bengal where I run a school for poor children. Everywhere I have treated my teaching and the students, this thing I have treated as a spiritual practice. Imagine how a so-called secular activity can be spiritualized. So, this is the thing, that how to spiritualize. There is a third attitude of the Jivan Mukta, how to spiritualize our day-to-day activities. And this thing is, as Swami Ashokanji says, it in fact solves the problem of spiritual practice. The mind is wandering, I'm not interested, I'm missing my spiritual practice. When you convert your day-to-day activities into spiritual practice, there is no question of missing your spiritual practice. But here I will sound a note of caution. It sounds easy. Actually, when you try to do it in practice, it's not so easy. A very senior monk of our order gave us this note of caution. He says, worship is fine, but it's much better to start and easier to start with work and worship. Devote some time of your day to prayer and meditation, japa, meditation, prayer, and other time to work, and slowly try to transfer the feeling, the elevation you get during your meditation and prayer into your work. So then your work, first work and worship, then your work as worship, and finally the culmination will be work is worship. Then you have spiritualized your everyday life. But it cannot come in one jump. The spiritual reading, the prayer, the meditation, the japa, those have to continue. In fact, those have to be intensified. That mood has to be carried over into day-to-day life. Otherwise, what will happen is, in the name of converting everyday activities into spiritual life, the spirituality itself disappears, the everyday activity will remain as such. You're working in the office, work in the office work remains as office work, academic work remains as academic work, going and shopping in the bazaar remains as going and shopping in the bazaar. There's no spirituality involved anywhere. So that problem will be there unless we intensify our spiritual practices. So that's a note of caution. I'll end with what Swami Ranganathanandaji used to say about spiritual life. I think that is, in a very simple way, he has put it all together. He says, what is spirituality? Remember, we started with Srinvantu Vishve Amritasya Putraha. And Swami Ranganathanandaji says, what is spirituality? When I close my eyes, I find peace within. When I open my eyes, my attitude is, what can I do for you? That is spirituality. It's a wonderful thing. Normally, when people say, Swami, when I close my eyes, disturbance, no peace within. When I open my eyes, not what I can do for you, what can I get from you? It is the reversal of this attitude. Spirituality is the reversal of this attitude. Everywhere you will see spirituality. What is meditation? Our normal scattering of the mind that is concentrated on God. We meditate on the world, meditate on God. Meditate on the world is worldliness. Meditation on God is spirituality. Bhakti, love of many things and people and all objects in the world, that is worldly love. concentrate that love on God, that is bhakti. Jnana, knowing this nama and rupa universe to be real, that is worldliness. Knowing the Satchidananda which is appearing in all these forms, the gold which is appearing as the ornaments, the water which is appearing as so many waves, knowing that alone to be real, that is jnana, that is spiritual knowledge. And what Swami Vivekananda's practical Vedanta does is, instead of isolating that jnana and that bhakti and dhyana into one component, into one capsule of life, he says integrate it into life. Let our karma be an expression of that spirituality as service. Let our bhakti be not love of God apart from love of other beings of the world, but love of God in all beings of the world. Let our jnana be not that world alone, the God alone is real and world is nothing. The God alone which is real is appearing as this world. There is a philosophy of Shaivism. There is Tamil Shaivism, Kashmiri Shaivism also. And the idea there is Shiva has become this world. Has become means appearing, not as transformed into the world, but as appearing. The world is an appearance of Shiva. And they call this philosophy Pratyavijñā Darshanam. Pratyavijñā means recognition. So you have to recognize Shiva in all beings. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Shiva Jnana Jiva Seva. To serve all beings, knowing them to be Shiva. Not imagining them. Yeah. Knowing them to be Shiva. So that is spirituality. Find peace within, in meditation, and service when I open my eyes and see the world. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed speaking to you about this, and I hope you've got some questions. I'll be happy to take questions. Can you tell us your name?
My name is Vaibhav.
Vaibhav.
Swamiji, I have a question that why the number of spiritual seekers are so less? If it would have been some performance or such, we would have a full packed audience. And here the seekers
True. The way we look at it is, in Vedanta, we are all seeking the same thing. We all want to exist, to live on. Nobody wants to not to be. And that is Sat existence. We all want to know more and more. Nobody wants to become unconscious. That is Chit. We are seeking our true nature as consciousness. We all want happiness. That is Ananda. So actually we are seeking Satchidananda all the time. Only thing is that we think this is available in the world outside. So I can continue to exist by living in this body. I want to live in this body. I want to know more and more about the world. I want to have joy or happiness in the world, with things in the world. And so, what you would normally call a non-spiritual attitude is people are seeking the same thing in this limited world. And when we find it is not possible, and that finding comes through experience. With experience. And then we turn inwards and try to find something that is not in this world of Nama Rupa, something that transcends this world of Nama Rupa. So why are spiritual seekers less in number? Because it requires some maturity. That maturity need not be maturity, with grey hairs. It requires a mature soul. We believe in many lives. So through many experiences in many lives, somebody from childhood itself has got spiritual seeking, some question about spiritual life. Somebody at the age of 60 or 70 also has no question about spiritual life. It takes some maturity, some experience, maybe a little child, but a very ancient soul inside, who has experienced the world and who does not want anything more in the world. They say that, they say that sinners have a future and saints have a past. So everybody who has come to spiritual life has experienced many things in this world. One Swami was asked, Swami, why didn't you, a very senior monk, why didn't you marry? The Swami said, I have married so many times. He said, what? In so many lives I am married, and I have had such bitter experiences life after life. This life I decided not to get married. So he's joking, but what he means is one moves ahead in spiritual life. One moves through worldly experiences into spiritual seeking. It happens to all of us. Imagine what we loved and wanted as children. And the lollipop which satisfied us, the Cadbury chocolate which satisfied us as when we were 10 years old, does not satisfy us anymore. We want something else now. So as we progress, our seeking also becomes refined. At one stage, it's what you would call spiritual life. Yes, question.
I have a question, Swami.
What's your name?
My name is Debayan.
Devayan.
I had a question like from where you just ended that we have this materialistic desire. Our materialistic desire increases every day, what I feel, because with the increasing, as in with aging and all, our materialistic desire increases. How to go beyond it, as in how to stop that?
Yes.
In
This is a good question, especially in this day and age. And as students of IIT, most of you, you're already in a sense, you've got it made. By the time you come out of this institute, you will get very high-paying jobs, and more or less many things you want in life, you will get in life, in this country or abroad. I saw so many young people, especially IITians, especially the IT industry in USA. Thousands and thousands of young boys and girls like you there. And so you will also be part of that. But now, the question is, chasing pleasure in this world, the latest gadget, the latest movie, the latest restaurant, or the latest car, or whatever, we think it will give us happiness. But in the end, it never does. Somerset Maugham, the famous novelist who wrote The Razor's Edge, he says in one place, if you single-mindedly chase pleasure, very soon you find nothing pleasing anymore. If you single-mindedly chase pleasure, very soon you will find nothing pleasing anymore. Now the tragedy of our modern society, consumerist society, is that if you are not happy, if you look at the advertisements, you will see, okay. We wait for the light to come back. Oh, the mic is still working. That's amazing. Right. If you look at the advertisements, you will see them. What's the message being conveyed? You are unhappy. Here is this mobile phone. Purchase this Galaxy 5 or something. You'll be happy. Because how do you know you'll be happy? Everybody who's holding it has a big smile. So you'll be happy. That's the message being conveyed to you. You get it. And you are happy, at least for a short while. Again you are unhappy. Now here is the problem. Again you are unhappy. What's the solution? Well, another mobile phone. Now Galaxy 6 is there, or 7 or something. And the old one, immediately when you see the 7, it's numbered in such a way, it will immediately make you feel bad about the one you are having, and you would like to have the new one. Now you see what the message is. We are trying to get happiness from artha and kama by satisfying our desire for pleasure and satisfying our desire for money and possessions. We think we will get happiness, and it does give some happiness. But the tragedy of our society is that when we come to a saturation point, when we don't feel happy with it anymore, the only solution our society gives us is more of the same thing. More artha, more kama, more variations of that. You don't like this, you take this one. You don't like this place, go on a vacation to this place. You don't like this vehicle, you will give you a more fancy vehicle. You don't like this job, there will be a better job. The more variations on the same thing. Whereas the traditional Indian understanding was, there's something which gives you more happiness is what is called dharma. You expand beyond this limited self, try to do something for others in an unselfish way, you will find you get happiness. The Professor Seligman, the pioneer in positive psychology, he performed an experiment, which I found it very interesting. In a class, he said, today we are not going to have a class, we are going to go out to see a movie. And the students, of course, were very happy. They went out to see a movie. When they came back, he handed out a questionnaire. Rate your happiness with this movie from 1 to 5. 1, least happy. 5, very happy, ecstatic. And they gave some kind of rating. Next week, he again said, today no class. We'll go out to that very poor section of society, of the city. And I've got clothes and toys, and we'll make friends with the kids there, and we'll distribute these gifts. And they went out and did that. When they came back, same questionnaire. Rate your happiness, 1 to 5. And they gave some kind of rating. 6 months later, suddenly in the class, Professor Seligman came with a bunch of questionnaires and said, today, look back to those 2 days. One day you saw a movie, rate the happiness you are getting from that movie right now. Many people said, we couldn't remember the name of the movie. Yeah, we remember, we went out to a movie. Happiness, nothing much. Maybe 1 or 2 something. We vaguely remember that. And remember the day we spent with those poor kids giving gifts and making friends with them? Yeah, we remember that. Rate your happiness. It was 4 out of 5 at that time. Today also it is 4 out of 5. You think back upon it, you get a permanent kind of satisfaction. That is dharma. Expanding beyond getting artha and kama for myself to doing something unselfishly for others. That expansion itself gives you happiness. Unfortunately, modern consumer society does not give that message. That's why people are unhappy. They get more and more of money and power and wealth and achievements, still unhappy. Not getting. There is a simple solution, is to expand further. It's a little counterintuitive because we feel the more I give to others, it's less for me. But rather, when I give to others, it's a power I have got. If I've got something, it's a power I've got to give. It enables me to give. It enables me to bring a smile to the lives of, to the faces of so many people. Beyond that is spirituality. Even beyond dharma is what is called moksha, the search for transcendence. So, the way to overcome this mad desire for material success and possessions is, first of all, to have a little bit and experience little bit yourself. If you have that desire, you must see what it is. Sri Ramakrishna once said, I had a desire for an expensive shawl. And Mathur Babu, who was looking after the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar, he immediately said, okay, Baba wants it. He got a very expensive shawl in those days and gave it to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna, like a child, immediately put it around himself, walked around. And then he said, I told my mind, see mind, this is a shawl. This is called an expensive shawl. Immediately, the mind said, after some time, he said, see, this is something which makes a person forget God. Takes your mind to the world. Immediately he threw the shawl down on the ground. He jumped upon it and he spat upon it. And he was about to set fire to it until it was quickly rescued by Mathur Babu, who snatched it away. That is the way to overcome material pleasures. If you see a little bit also, the rest of the material pleasures offered by this world is a variation of this. This one gave me so much happiness, the other one also will give me around this much happiness only. And it will again go away. Is it worth spending the rest of my life chasing this? Especially when other alternatives are there. A meaningful life of service and spirituality. Yeah. Why do people adore, I heard the question, why do people adore trees and animals? They don't have spirit. Well, adore in what sense? You mean love? Worship? Yes. You see, in some religions, sometimes you will find worship of something in a tree or something, it's there. Now, basically, thank you for the question. Please sit down. Yeah. There, the worship is not actually to a tree or an animal. 2 points I'll make here. In any living being, according to Vedanta, there is the Sukshma Sharira. Yesterday we were talking about it. And that Sukshma Sharira catches a reflection or catches some of the consciousness of the Atman. That's why we feel conscious just now. So, the Atman is there in all beings. Even in trees and animals, of course it is there. So, the divinity, that spirit, it's there in all beings. And that spirit alone is what is worshipped. Not why only trees and animals. Sometimes you find a stone statue is being worshipped. So it's not the stone which is being worshipped. It's not the metal which is being worshipped. It's not the wooden statue which is being worshipped. In Bengal, there is Durga Puja. After the puja, the great fanfare, the puja is done. And the image, you will see, if the image was being worshipped, why would they take and throw it in the Ganga? So it's not the image which is being worshipped, it's the spirit which is being worshipped. And the spirit is there everywhere, it is immanent. Immanent means indwelling in all beings. It's there in every being. And that's what is worshipped. Yes.
Swamiji, my name is Abhishek.
Abhishek.
My question is, we all know that nothing is permanent, everything is temporary.
Yes.
But still we stick to certain things. How do we let go of that thing?
Yes. The way to let go of the impermanent is to first hold on to the permanent. To find a sense of the permanent in all beings. When I hold on to God, which is permanent, the impermanent, I will not be attached to the impermanent. right? To recognize the impermanent as impermanent and to find the permanent beyond the impermanent. So the changing names and forms, beyond that there's one God, which is in those changing names and forms, which is appearing in all those beings. So then I love God in all beings, but I'm not attached to a particular name and form. When you get attached to a particular name and form, what happens is, I think I've caught hold of it. But when I catch hold of this mic, I think I'm catching hold of the mic. But the fact is the mic has also trapped me, because now I cannot go anywhere else. I'm caught hold here, caught hold by the mic. You catch hold of money, I think I'm holding on to money, but the money is also holding on to you. That's the problem with catching hold of the impermanent. Because it's impermanent, when you catch hold of that, it also holds you, and because it is impermanent, keeps changing and gives you suffering. You want it to remain like this. You want the person to remain as perfect as you found that person to be. But the person is a changing entity. So the moment the person changes, you feel that this is not the person I liked or loved. It's automatic, it's changed. When you, the physical body, we love it so much. It's a continuously changing entity. It will deteriorate with age. So holding on to the impermanent is a cause of sorrow. But holding on to the permanent behind all the impermanent, that is a cause of freedom and joy. There is a story of a person who dived into a river. He saw a nice blanket floating down the river in flood. And this villager, he dived into rivers with great difficulty, swam out to the blanket and caught hold of it, and he found it was a bear being swept away by the flood. Bear also caught hold of him. And people on the banks of the river, they are shouting, you let go, in Hindi, kambal ko chhod dijiye. Kambal means a blanket. Let go of the kambal, the blanket. You will get drowned. And that man is shouting, maine to kambal chhod diya, kambal nahi chhodta humko. That is the problem with any kind of impermanent thing we hold on to. We get trapped by holding on to such things. And it turns out, often with kambal turns out to be a bear. Okay, we should, last question.
Swamiji, I am Chandrakant. I first want to thank you because after coming here only in the day, our whole day, I feel like a peace of mind here. Because in the morning, from morning we are attending some other lecture, really. And joining some Department of Management Study lecture, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock came here for leadership lecture, 5 o'clock CFI. They were motivating like, complete this, go ahead above this. And after listening to everything, after coming here, some other view comes to life, that everything is on the ground and I'm seeing from the top, all things are like that. So first, thank you for that. And other thing, my question is, what do you think about future of human life? Any view, like we have so many religions now. So in that context or any context as a future of human?
And I'm not sure I understand the question very clearly, but I'll just say from what I've understood. I think I have a very positive view of the future of humanity. As Swami Vivekananda would say, we are going from lower truth to higher truth. You see, in the world today, the world is becoming more and more one. Thanks to technology, to travel, we are becoming one. We are learning from each other. We are getting a more universal spirit. We are no longer confined to our limited ideas of region or caste or language or gender or religion. We know more about the other. Therefore, we are aware of the limitations in what we have, and we can learn from the other also. And now we have freedom. Just imagine, few generations ago, maybe 2 or 3 generations, or 3 or 4 generations ago, our forefathers, they had so much restriction. They were born in one place, and most of them, they spend their whole life in one place. Today, you're born in one place, you study in this place, you will work in another place, maybe in another country, maybe later you will live in another country. Pico Iyer, the famous travel writer, he says, when people look at me, there's a talk on being homeless. He says, when people look at me, they say I'm Indian. It's true, my ancestry is Indian, but I have never lived in India. I have lived in England, where everybody regarded me as a foreigner. I mostly work in USA, but I don't live there. And I lived in Japan, where I never fit in at all. So what is my home? So today we are completely free, or at least greatly free, in terms of occupation. Imagine our forefathers, they were born into one occupation. Most of them, very few of them had the social mobility to move from one occupation to another. They spend their whole lives in that occupation. What will I do with my life? That was a theoretical question for them. It is more or less fixed by society what they will do with. But it's a real question for us. What will I do with my life? How will I live life? So there's tremendous freedom, and with freedom comes responsibility. We must learn more about ourselves and others and see what best way we can lead our lives. I think, as Swami Vivekananda said, freedom is the first condition of growth. With freedom, lot of abuses also come. See, if you open your windows, fresh air will come in, but the bugs will also come in. So, it's better to have freedom. People will make mistakes, there will be abuses, but growth is there. Swami Vivekananda said freedom is the first condition of growth. So we have freedom in many dimensions. We are not aware. Women especially. Just imagine your grandmothers, just 2 or 3 generations back, how much of a limited scope they had in life. And for many reasons today, women are tremendously much more free today. Much more free today. And that is all for the good of society. So these are some of the reasons why I think there is great hope for human welfare, for the betterment of human race in the decades and centuries ahead. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji, for that wonderful talk. It was a perfect blend of style and stuff. I think all of us have enjoyed and learned something today. And all of you are welcome to join our Sunday classes and other activities, either as participants or as volunteers. This semester's concluding Sunday class will be held on 19th, that is the following Sunday, at 9:30 a.m. in MSB 243. 9:30 a.m. This Sunday class, like other classes, will include Shanti Mantra chanting, meditation, reading from the letters of Swami Vivekananda, and this Sunday's topic for the discussion by Swami Atmashraddhananda ji is putting theory into practice, some tips on how to remain motivated. This will be followed by question and answer session and experience sharing by participants in VSC classes. This Sunday we will also have Swami Vimokshananda ji, a senior monk of the Ramakrishna Mutt who recently returned from Ramakrishna Center at Durban in South Africa. He too will speak and interact with students. All of you are welcome to the events mentioned and unmentioned. I request Swami Atmashraddhananda ji to deliver the vote of thanks.
Many years ago, should be around 3 decades back, I was attending a similar function. A senior monk of the order had been invited and he was speaking. And after the speech, one of the Swamijis, who was very dear to us, Swami Nishwananda ji Maharaj, who is no more, he was asked to deliver vote of thanks. He was known for his humor. The Swamiji had spoken very well, so he turned to the Swamiji and said, Swamiji, you have spoken so well, and I don't have words to say that I can thank you, so I tell you, please thank yourself. Thank you, Sarvapriyananda ji, for coming all the way and speaking to all of us. The VSC has been conducting these classes and going by the number of people who are present here, it means they are well received. We all have needs, and just now Maharaj referred to how when we spiritualize life, we begin to recognize others' needs, we begin to work for them in a spiritual sense. Swami Vivekananda, in his lecture in Karma Yoga, makes a point. We all have physical needs. We all need food, clothing, shelter, and these days it is added as broadband also as one of the basic needs. And then you have got the intellectual needs, your career needs, your financial needs, your security needs. And having said that, further still the question comes, what do we want in life? And I would read out a small passage from the Karma Yoga section, which says it all. And that is why our lectures here are organized, and that's why all of you come here, Swamiji says, in considering the question of helping others, we must always strive not to commit the mistake of thinking that physical help is the only help that can be given. It is not only the last but the least, because it cannot bring about permanent satisfaction. The misery that I feel when I am hungry is satisfied by eating. But hunger returns, my misery ceases when I am satisfied beyond all wants. Then hunger will not make me miserable. No distress, no sorrow will be able to move me. So, that help which tends to make us strong spiritually is the greatest. Next to it comes intellectual help, and after that, physical help. The miseries of the world cannot be cured by physical help alone. Until man's nature changes, these physical needs will always arise and miseries will always be felt, and no amount of physical help will cure them completely. The only solution of this problem is to make mankind pure. That is what the VSC has been trying to do, that is to reach the message of how we can improve ourselves, purify ourselves, cultivate our personality, our thinking, our emotions, our lives. For that is what is finally going to solve the problem of misery and pain. We wish Sarvapriyananda, as his name indicates, Sarvapriya. He visits more and more places and shares his knowledge, shares his skill of delivering things, communicating things well to more and more people, especially to the youth. And we wish him all the best, and on behalf of everyone, I extend him a very warm thanks for having come here. Thank you. Thank you also to all the Swamijis and Brahmacharis who have come. And above all, thanks to all my friends in VSC who have been very enthusiastically working, and all of you who have gathered here. Anything that is successful means so many people are involved. So our volunteers, as well as audience, those who are here, as also those who have lent us this hall, the authorities, those who are recording the proceedings, all of them, they deserve a thanks. Thank you very much.